always like this
It's
crazy
on.
time. Yeah, it's always this crazy time because we think that we're not live, but we are. And then we suddenly hear ourselves. And so then we're singing and we're dancing and it's like crazy. So here we are. We're live.
Hello, everybody. I feel like people who actually watch these videos would be disappointed if we
We
didn't
didn't
like
dance
sing
and
and
singing. I'm
yeah.
singing.
See, Elise is getting into it.
Get into that.
Woohoo. Well, so
Woohoo.
welcome, Elise. And Shannon, it's so good to see you. You are vital today.
I am vital today. I got some energy going today.
Did you see your name tag says vital?
It does?
Yes, it says vital at the bottom.
Oh, it does. That's hilarious. Where happened to the E? Okay, then. Literally, I am vital today.
You are vital.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So Elise, hello and welcome.
Hello.
We are so excited to talk with you because we had such a great conversation with you last week when we met you. So if you would just introduce yourself to our audience, who you are, what you do, and all the exciting things that brought you here.
Okay, how much time do we have? Good afternoon, friends. My name is Elise Smith. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan, but currently I reside in Indianapolis, Indiana. Prior to getting to Indianapolis, I started this whole thing in Bloomington, Indiana, which is about an hour south of where I am. I came to Bloomington, Indiana with the intent to get my master's in higher education student affairs, also known as HESA. After those 2 years, I ended up in a doctoral program in the urban education studies program at IUPUI with a focus on the experiences of fat bodies using Black feminist thought, critical race theory, also known as CRT, embodiment, intersectionality, and sense of belonging. I think I got all of them in there. So it's a lot of big letter words that at one point in time I had no idea what they meant, right? But nevertheless, in this research, I am also the inaugural director of diversity, equity, inclusion for the Division of Student Affairs at IUPUI. So I'm relatively young in my career, but I have definitely been putting my feet everywhere that I could possibly put them, especially with this work. In my research, I look at the experiences of fat bodies through those different frameworks that I mentioned before, and the intentionality behind that is to actually, demystify some of the things that we hear when it comes to bigger bodies within, professional settings, healthcare, dating, careers, just day-to-day experiences, fashion. I'm also a photographer and spoken word artist. I do have the wonderful opportunity of leaving actually tomorrow to go to Paris, France to do some work around photography and body image. Shout out to Chelsea for this stellar opportunity. So I'm very engulfed in this work from multi-mediums, especially photography, spoken word, literally my research. So I'm excited to be here today to talk all the things around body positivity, body neutrality, and just minding the body that you occupy and how you all be a part of that process. That if you want to put your business in someone else's body, somebody might come and ball your lips up and tell you not to do that. So I'm here to talk about all those great things related to that.
Wow. That's all I have to say about that. Wow.
I know. It's kind of like we were last week. It's like, where do we even want to start to unpack this? Like, it's such a big topic that you raised. And so maybe the best place to start is research and experience around living in a larger body in the workplace.
Okay, let's get into that. So I have a presentation that I do. It's called Mind the Body You Occupy, a discussion on body diversity in the workplace. And the first thing I have people do in this presentation is do a little Googling, right? Get your Googleables on. I don't know if that's a word, but it is today. What I have learned as a doctoral student is I am not a medical doctor, so I can't, discover diagnoses and any ailments, but as a doctor of philosophy I can make a word. So there you go, there's my contribution to the world. But in my research, especially when I have had conversations with individuals, I'll make them Google a couple things, right? What does it mean to see a good body, a normal body, or a bad body, or those different things? And they go into Google and they look up these algorithms where they see certain images are there. Then I talk about what's missing, and usually what's missing from the conversation is age, both on on the younger side, and specifically for those who are who I like to call our seasoned saints. So those individuals who are older, they are usually pushed out of the conversation, right? As though bodies do not age, as though bodies do not become greater over time. You know, talking to college students is funny because most of them are saying, I'm so afraid to get old. Me, I can't wait. I've always been a spicy granny. That's my nickname, because my grandparents raised me. So I've always saw the value in becoming older. You start to, I ain't gonna cuss, but you start not to give a beep about a lot of stuff, right? You really start not to care. And I am thankful that I did care when I was younger, because it helped me identify how to help people recognize what you should not actually pay attention to. You know, when I talk to older individuals, they're like, you know, I've been stopped worrying about that. And being only 33 at the time, physically, I'm 33, mentally, I'm 65. That's just the way my grandparents raised me. I've always been in this space, if you can't tell by my shirt. But nevertheless, I think what that taught me was how to navigate these conversations, especially in professional settings. Bigger bodies experience higher healthcare premiums, right? Even if they haven't had necessarily any kind of, you know, blood work done or anything, some of those assumptions come out of the way. Capabilities, whether we're talking about being able to live, standing for long period of times, you know, also the conversation about attractiveness. I met a woman who had a coworker she had worked for 30 plus years, who her CEO put in a corner office because she wasn't deemed attractive because of her size. And what does that look like when someone can dedicate 30 years of their life knowing that you also don't care about the way they look? You know, the assumptions of bodies on the larger end or on even on the thinner end, experience capabilities. Can you lead? Can you manage, right? If someone who is my size or larger in those spaces decide to be, you know, stern, stand on what they can in professionalism, then you're automatically deemed as bossy, or you're considered a problem, or you're aggressive, right? And also those bias and discrimination and harassment that come up. And a lot of people will say, no, you might have it all in your head. It's funny, a lot of people who I, you know, talk to about this research, who have those experiences, are like, finally, you know, somebody gets where I'm coming from. The other thing that shows up in the workplace when it comes to being bigger bodies, I talked to a woman who's out of New York. Her name on Instagram is Organic Curves, and she used to work in like the broker industry. And Latina woman, very curvaceous, and she would literally be called into HR's office being told her body was a distraction, right? And she had on dress clothes, but dress clothes, dress pants look different on different body types. And they kept telling her, you know, people are being distracted by your body. Now, just because you think she fine and sexy and you can't do your work, don't got nothing to do with the fact that she came in and was able to do hers, right? But because of the consistent harassment and because of the consistent disciplinary actions, she decided to pull herself, went into the cosmetic world, became an esthetician. She said, I make more money now than I would have ever made there, right? How does that look? I've talked to different individuals who have been, go ahead. You have something to say for me?
I just have a quick question before you keep going, because I don't want to forget it. I apologize. In your research, do you also find differences in how people in the workplace view people in larger bodies as it relates to men versus women?
Yep, it's always there. Men on the more like surface level will be considered powerful in their bigger bodies in certain capacities. Doesn't mean they don't experience that discrimination for size, but it's almost like this boss complex that shows up. You know, you're wealthy, you're healthy, you're a bigger dude. Now within their own circles, that conversation shifts. But when we're talking about the dichotomy of men versus women, this also doesn't even include trans individuals. This doesn't include non-binary individuals, right? So further marginalizing those experiences as well. But when we're talking about men and women in those spaces, men have an advantage still, but then in their groups, when it's smaller bodies, that's when they start to see the discrimination a little bit more. We also notice with the gender wage gap, there are still men who make more money based on their size compared to fat or bigger body women identifying folks, right? And then when we throw race into that conversation, white women make more than Black and Latinx women in those spaces as well. And this is all based on assumption. You know, even management has said a few things, not all negative. I'll start off with the negative so we end off on a positive note. But some of the negative things managers say is, oh, they lack discipline, you know, get it together. I'm afraid to hire them because then, you know, what will I have to do do long term. They're automatically thinking about that. But on the positive end, most of them say, hey, that could be genetics. You know, a lot of that, what are my misassumptions about those individuals that show up in that space? In 2018, I was a part of a legal research team where they end up studying the Indiana legal community. And in the Indiana legal community, we looked at harassment and discrimination. I was all for looking through all of the data, but I specifically told my professor, I was like, hey, I'm looking for weight, appearance, and size, right? Because like, I know you are. 2 people responded. One identified as a male and the other one identified as a woman. And they talked about the fact that even as a woman, having to wear, skirts and a blouse, right? Because the legal community in some areas still push that certain type of professionalism, although they don't want to identify how it is seeped in whiteness and white supremacy and how that can be actually problematic, right? Then the gentleman spoke about the fact that he was a bigger body who was also queer. How does that show up in those spaces when you come into those legal ramifications? And sometimes they said they were pushed back, not pushed for partner, looked over, their expertise was only listened to when it comes out of someone else's mouth. And I've experienced that a few times, especially in my younger parts of my career when I didn't know it was happening, but I knew something didn't feel right, but I couldn't put it together because I was like, man, I don't want to assume. But now that I'm older, I was like, no, I felt what I felt. So yes, there is definitely still that difference where the advantage does lean more to the male identifying population versus those who identify as female.
Yeah, I've witnessed that a lot because I've spent 20 some years in the corporate world myself. And I've noticed it a lot in hiring practices. Sadly, I have heard way too many inappropriate and unfortunate comments about body size and equating that with, I don't think they can do the job. I don't think they can be around. They look like this. And I've had to say things to, and it just always shocks me. I don't know why. I'm still surprised that people can think they can just say these things out loud, like, and it's horrible. Like in this day and age, the fact that we've only come far is saddening to me.
I mean, the other thing is, this is more towards my doctoral research side, is I've been working recently in my job, but luckily I go to a school where I'm adjunct faculty, I'm student and staff member, so it all works in my favor, I guess. So I'm not doing 3 separate jobs. But I recently was talking to human resources and Office of Equal Opportunity. And when we look through like climate surveys or bias incident reports, there's nothing where you can select size. So in my research, I have asked these individuals, hey, have you seen this? And they're like, you know what? We have anecdotally or in passing, or it shows up in the other comments. So my goal, fingers crossed, is moving forward. I can help with that implementation of how do we add size and appearance. So they were fortunate enough, I was able to get data dating back to 2014, where these things did come up in conversation. And a lot of people feel like that's not it. The reason why I do the crux of my work is because we only get one body. I haven't heard about 2. If we get 2, I'll call all y'all, let y'all know when you can pick it up. But for the most part, what I know is you get one body, whether you have a disability, whether you are of a certain size, whether you have a different race, ethnic, all of those different things that are body image issues, right? Even hair. Right. We know the political climate around here, especially those who identify as Black and brown. We know what that looks like. However, the reason why I do this work is because at no point can you leave certain parts of your identity at home. I cannot just show up to you as woman. I cannot show up to you as just fat. I cannot show up to you as just Black. And that's on the surface level, right? Now, when we start adding social economic status, religious or secular beliefs, when we start thinking about even just disabilities that are considered invisible, the conversation go on and on and on and on and on, right? So for me, I want people to understand, no matter how you might feel about another body, 1, unless you're their healthcare provider, you probably don't know anything. 2, stop making assumptions, and only people get this one chance at it. Imagine if you had to live a life where every single identity, especially around the body you have, is criticized and ridiculed everywhere you go. That is not a quality of life. Nobody asked to be here. I don't remember tapping on anybody's uterus saying, please pick me. I want to come to the world. I just know my parents, your parents went into that room and they came out a couple of months later. Here we are, right? So nobody chose when their parents went into that room, right? Nobody. So I say that to say, imagine being born in a space that in mechanisms that already were pitted against you. I already know that I have 2 strikes before size is even thrown into the conversation by no choice of my own. So why is it okay for everybody to say, well, I just want you to be healthy? Okay, fine. You want the world to be healthy, but here's the assumption. Not every fat body you see is unhealthy, and not every thin body you see is healthy. So if you're going to have that same concern, make sure you do it with every single person. And the first person you should start with is the person that you see in your reflection in the mirror. And then for those who because I recognize everybody is now have the same visual ability, the person who you are, right? Start with who you are first. That's all I want the world is to recognize. Like, you have doctors, teachers, lawyers, just people who want to be people, but they're afraid to live their full, literally vital lifestyle because it's like, oh, what if I get made fun of if my shirt doesn't fit, or if I have cellulite, or if I'm bigger than somebody, or if I'm thin and people think that something is wrong. I just think it's a space where I will push back against anybody say, now that you got your rant out the way, tell me, how does that benefit you? 9 times out of 10, nobody can tell me how it benefits them. So I'm like, you know what you're doing? Wasting my time, your time, and everybody else's time. When you could go out there and plant a tree and help the world, you want to sit in here and talk shit. That's not smart. So I'll stop.
Yes, to all of that. Yes.
So one of the things that I think I don't think, one of the things you said is something that we've been hearing a lot of as we speak about this topic, and that is that there's this automatic assumption. Larger bodies are not as healthy as smaller bodies. And while on some level, some metrics may be true, the other thing that does not take into account is that yo-yo dieting, losing tons of weight, regaining that weight, losing more weight, that is unhealthier than just staying consistently overweight. So we actually do more harm to people who are in larger bodies when we encourage dieting consistently, because dieting doesn't work, right? And then they lose the weight, and everybody assumes that they're healthy and that they're doing so much better. And we get all kinds of compliments like, you look great and aren't you fantastic and blah, 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 that required. And then all of a sudden our esteem in other people's eyes goes up, because it's like, wow, you had the discipline to do that, right? And then all of a sudden you gain that weight back, right? That is actually an unhealthier situation for you than if you had simply stayed overweight consistently at your overweight weight, because it's not as hard on your heart, right?
But I also think that's a very narrow viewpoint of what is healthy,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, healthy means something different for every single human being that is walking around on this earth. And even if you're thin, you can be extremely unhealthy on the inside, physically, as well as in your head, emotionally, physically, you know what I mean? Emotionally.
Yes.
And those things feed into your overall health. So no matter what size you are, yes, there are physical ramifications of whatever weight you're at, or however you treat your body, right? You could be treating it like crap. You could be a heroin addict, right? And
Yes.
be super skinny. And that's obviously not healthy.
Right.
But we as human beings need to take a step back, right? Separate our worth from our appearance and how much or how little we weigh, because that's a total separate topic in my mind. You can love yourself exactly in whatever body you are, because you're still that same essence of you.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's what we're trying to get to. And,
yes.
And if you are in an unhealthy body, you can still love yourself. You can still be confident in yourself. Should be able to walk around this world and do your thing and shine your light without judgment. And if you want to, you can take steps to become more healthy. But that's up to you. Should not ever be up to anyone else around you. Sorry,
Yes.
I just went off on a soapbox there.
No, I think a few. I got 5 points. I meant to keep it at 2. Y'all start talking so much.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, you're fine. I think one thing that we have to recognize is when it comes to these conversations, terminology, right? What does it mean when we say someone is quote unquote overweight or obese or unhealthy,
Right.
especially in those spaces, right? Just thinking about that language. The next thing is I met an individual who literally lost weight and does not look like she ever occupied a bigger body. However, for her, she said she was more unhappy losing the weight than she did before because of the treatment of people in the world, which leads me to my third point of how weight loss can be your biggest fear. The celebration of weight loss is your biggest fear confirmed, right? Meaning people didn't see any value in you outside of anything except the change of your body. My next point is I met an individual, and I think I shared this with you all last week. She did a photo shoot with me, and so many people had told her, like, oh, you look so good, you're losing weight, blah, blah. And she was like, thanks, I'm dying, right? And then it was like, we're so sorry, we didn't mean to say that, but not recognizing what someone's health was prior to. So because of a health ailment she had, and she almost lost her life on the surgery table, that led to her losing a lot of weight because she lost a lot of blood in that process, right? And they were actually fearful she wasn't going to live. However, that was 3 years ago, thank the stars that she's still alive. And then my last point is, in this research, I've been fortunate enough to not get a lot of pushback, right? But I know it's still there in some people. I haven't run into the right people yet, but I'm ready for them when they decide to show up. Where it says, oh, you're promoting obesity. Oh, you're promoting fat bodies. Oh, you're promoting this, this, and the third. All right. Now that you got all your health concerns out the way, my thing about it is you have to recognize what that person needs to do. If there's a change that anybody, and I literally mean any body, wants to do, that should be up to them. What I'm speaking about is the intentional and permissible hate discrimination that comes with those individuals, whether they want to show up at a public space, whether they want to show up in an event, whatever they want to do. Where does it give you the rights and capabilities to mistreat somebody? Because if a few of those skeletons fell out your closet that you get to hide, and people start to actually play on that, what would that feel like? These individuals that you see, myself included, I'm not asking, there's a misconception. Oh, you just want to eat cheeseburgers all day. Actually, like I told y'all, I love a good salad, and I am that person. But you automatically think, well, if you do this, this equates to this. That's not necessarily true. Sandra, I think you were telling me about a gentleman in Brazil who did something around caloric value, or was it you, Shannon? I can't remember. Somebody about caloric value, and it was like, all right, I'm going to eat this plant-based diet would say 2,300 calories, but I'm going to eat this other American diet that's 2,300, and I see there's a difference, right? So another part is a lot of individuals, and I speak from this space of growing up in a space where we're trying to survive versus thrive. So if I live in a neighborhood that has no access to a grocery store, but only a gas station, if I'm an undergraduate student and I can't afford a meal plan, so I got to eat something that's literally sustainable where I can go get those frozen foods, or if I can go get some things, yes, and even making the healthy options, I'm not thinking about like, oh, make sure that I have this, salmon salad every day. I'm thinking about, okay, do I have enough to get through the week? So I think through my research and through these conversations, for people to see more of the perspective, right? During the pandemic, I'll be transparent, I lost 25 pounds. Now, that 25 pounds wasn't intentional. It was a reminder, I don't have money to eat like that every single day because I couldn't work because my job was shut down. So sometimes eating once a day was my only option. The other thing is I got my feelings hurt by this little knucklehead man, but that's okay. Everybody gets their heart broken once. So I really didn't even have an appetite on top of that. But nevertheless, thinking about what those spaces look like instead of the automatic assumption, because people are going to always try to push back and they'll say, well, you can do this and you can do that. But are you really that dedicated to help that person, or just call it out because it feels good for you and the rest of the world has allowed you to do so?
Yes.
I think that you hit on a really beautiful point there. And that is that the just access to food, quality food. So on top of layering, race, on top of layering, it's just, yes, there's privilege. There's, in fact, Jen just took the words right under, there's so much privilege in healthy eating because economic access to food, healthy food, access to programs. It's yeah. We in fact, Shannon, weren't we talking about the food stamp program and the things that are
That it will cover and won't.
yes, because so maybe you can talk about that.
So from my, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I know that pop, soda, right? Chips, all that, all the processed foods, no problem, right? But a lot of the fruits and vegetables and the fresh things that, number one, people may not be able to get to because they live in a food desert, just like we we're talking about. And number two, the program itself and the assistance that they're able to get might not even cover those healthy foods. And a lot of it is because those programs are subsidized a lot of times by big food, sadly. So yeah, that's a whole other topic of conversation.
And yet there's so much stigma associated with living in a larger body, some of which there's well, it's like we were saying, some of it is people believe that's a choice that we make, right? It's a choice that we make because we're lazy, because we're not disciplined enough. And in some cases, no.
So many judgments, so many assumptions based on fear, based on propaganda and conditioning from society. And I always say, why? Why? What is the point? That just baffles my mind.
And then I think for me also, it's, you know, the part about choice, right? Whether it is somebody's choice or not. I mean, let's be honest, you can do it. That's like someone saying it's your choice to drink a beer or to smoke weed or to go to a party or to not pay your bills. Or that's almost like hearing some, you know, it's almost like late fees to me, right? If I had the money, it wouldn't have been late. So why are you putting me in more situations where, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just those things about choice. And again, you know, everybody's going to have their opinion on it. But what I'm asking people to recognize is this because you truly have a concern and you're going to make an investment to do anything, right? Because I don't want to say to better, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to better somebody's opportunity or life. But are you going to make the investment, or is it because the world has made it so permissible to do those certain types of things, right? For example, I'll bring up Lizzo. Guarantee, you know, I don't know anybody's pockets, but I know Lizzo has more money than me, right? You know, I know it, right? And it's a little sad because I too would like a piece of her money. But although she is a classically trained individual who plays the flute, she is literally on tour, on stage, performing every single time she has a show. She has the ability and the stamina. People's like, but your body doesn't look this way. Let's take that out of context. Do we look at football players with the same capacity? No, right? Football players are okay to be big in that capacity, and you look for them to be big because it has an element to the sport. So what I'm saying is, don't look at these bodies and automatically assume what they can and cannot do. I can outrun half my friends that's smaller than me. Now, could I run a marathon for 3 days straight? No, but I can get down the street. I can haul some ass. I can get down there, right? I've even had other individuals who will be like, oh, I didn't know, you know, you had that type of stamina. Because you assume different things from me. I can go outside and do my grandparents, which I don't know why they have so much grass, but I'll go outside and cut their grass, and I've been doing that since a kid, no problem. There are certain things that, you know, I can have the capabilities to doing. I can go get on an elliptical or a treadmill for an hour straight and I'll be okay. Where I've seen smaller counterparts to me struggle. And this is not about a competition to prove am I able or not, but I don't look at them and pass any judgment like, you're going to let the big girl outdo you? No. It's a process about us all moving there. However, when they walk off this treadmill and go into the world, they don't have to worry about the world perceiving them in the same ways that I do. So I'm here to say, yeah, I'm going to put my foot down and advocate for these individuals because, again, I want to have a comfortable life. I shouldn't have to be sitting up and wondering if strangers are going to say certain things about me simply because I don't look the way they want me to look. Guarantee you, if anybody goes down their lineage, somebody look like one of us in your family. And at that point, don't act like you're that far away from anybody who has that experience. So that's my goal in doing this research, is one, just to make the world a little bit more of a livable place for anybody who's occupying this space.
Beautiful.
I love this. I love this. This is exactly why Sandra and I wanted to open up these conversations and start having these discussions and having a retreat, and because these topics are so important and they're integral to all of us and they touch each of our lives, no matter who you are. And if we don't start opening up and if we don't start talking about it, nothing's ever going to change.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's like we spent a lot of time on the weekend talking about it, and it's like there's two different issues. One is your size does not determine your worth, your value, or anything about you other than your size. And the other one is like health related. And you can't we try to blend those conversations and say that it's not healthy and it's not you're not worthy because you're not a certain size. And the reality is health and all the metrics associated with health have little to do with body size.
Yep. Agreed.
And worth has even less to do with body size.
It was, I was talking to a friend and we were, scrolling social media, you'll see memes and stuff like that. And one of the biggest critiques I see towards body positivity or body neutrality is to show my 600-pound life, right? They'll say, what about this, right? As though this is just all of us. And I remember reading through the comments because I also do content analysis. I don't know what I'm going to do with this later, but I think I'm going to do something with it. When I see stuff related to size, I'll screenshot it and just stick it in a folder on my phone. So I got probably like 6-7 years worth of content that one day, right? But the biggest thing that came out of that comment related to my 600-pound life is someone said, y'all talking a lot of mess, but each and every one of them are married and they have someone who actually is sitting in the house engaging with them, right? And so I bring that to context to say, a lot of people will attribute size to like, well, this is why you're lonely and this is why you won't get married and nobody will want you and nobody's going to do this and you're going to die lonely. And I'm just looking like, if you're going to highlight that show, you also can't take away the fact that all of these individuals are loved by somebody. I don't care how you define love. And if you want it that way, they have somebody. So make sure you check your single business self before you start to scrutinize these people. And although it was built in humor, there was truth to it. None of those individuals were single, and they weren't married 10 minutes ago. They literally had people who advocated for them in that way. And although this is that one thing that people try to critique and pin against bigger bodies and say we're all like that, it's just like, even with you trying to pin that on somebody, you can't argue the fact while you sitting in there typing on your phone, real single and by yourself, this person isn't. Right. So, even just those small things where it's like, we found that one thing that will shut you all down. It's like, you still didn't win when it came to that. So although very small, it was something that was worth like, that was a thought probably, none of them are single. So when Valentine's Day come, make sure all that body hate you got, you doing it with your partner. Oh, that's right. You don't have nobody and they do. So you should shut up. Mm-hmm.
Assumptions, right? Assumptions and judgment.
Judgment. Yes, absolutely. I like to say that, and I am guilty of, because I also have my own judgments, right? We all have biases. That's a nicer way of saying we all have judgments. But I think leadership is hard. To take a position on something and to stand for something, that's hard. Judgment, that's easy. It doesn't require a lot of work. It doesn't require a lot of self-evaluation to go around and say, this person is this person is that, and I'm better than, and blah, blah, blah. That's easy stuff to do. To sit down and really think through and have compassion for and empathy for and not judge, but listen and hear somebody else's experience, and to show leadership in that way, that's hard.
Yep.
That's hard to do.
Takes bravery and courage.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your work is so important, Elise. Thank you for doing it.
Yes. We're so excited. We're so excited to continue the conversation and have an awesome time in Paris.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm trying to figure out now what I'm going to pack. I got questions I should have asked last week, but we're going to have a good time. I think the reason why this is also a great experience because I get to go see Beyonce, but beyond Beyonce, I think for me, even thinking about why did I start this work, right? So I'll never forget, I was in New Orleans and was on a trolley, had my first time being like that deep South. Like my family is from South Carolina. my grandparents and my mom. But before they moved to Detroit, you know, we used to always go back and down there forth when I was a kid. And that was hot, but New Orleans was a different type of hot nobody told me about. And my favorite color to wear is typically black or yellow, but most of my clothes are black. And so I went down there, and when I packed my suitcase, I was like, this isn't gonna work. And I had one shirt in there that I had found from TJ Maxx that was like a tank top, but it had little arms that flipped over it. Ever since a kid, never like wearing my arms out because somebody made a comment when I was in like the 6th grade. And that's the other thing. People fail to realize those things stick with you forever.
Mhm.
One comment from 6th grade literally shut down the whole wear your arms out situation. So I had stretch marks here, but I don't know, either I done got older and my whole arm is a stretch mark, or you just can't see them no more. I don't know. But now I'm gonna put a tank top on. You're not about to, not today, but you're not gonna make me hot in those clothes. And I never forget, I put this shirt on, I went outside and the trolley kept blowing up the sleeves. So this is 6-year-old Elise starting to pop up, and tears started to form. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to, like, I'm struggling with this. And my friend next to me, who's a lot thinner than I am, she calls me Granny, I call her TT. She said, TT, what's wrong? I was like, nothing. I just realized this is the moment I'm gonna have to do something about this. And that's where Fatness Fiction and Plus Size Magic was born, literally sitting on that trolley going through New Orleans. And when I came back, I went into full force, which led to the creation of Plus Size Magic Radio, which is a podcast where I've interviewed over 150 people, including models from the UK. The first male model for Rihanna Savage Fenty X, Steven, shout out to him. You know, Virgie Tovar, who's literally working for Forbes now. She's been doing this work for years. Literally have opportunities where I've met people all across the board, whether they're well-known influencers or just people I know within my communities who I've talked to, that led to an independent magazine titled Plus Magazine that will be relaunching this September for the 6-year anniversary of the work that I've done. You know, my photography work, where I've went on photo shoot tours and went to different cities where I have called these individuals out to say, you know, you're more than what is on the other side of the camera. My favorite thing is when I take a picture of someone and I flip the camera around and they're like, oh, that's me. And I'm like, that's you. And they're like, oh my goodness, like I look cute. So growing up, I never forget that I hated pictures to a certain extent, because it was just like, nobody wants to see the chunky kid take a picture, but my grandparents were very adamant about that. And I never forget 7th grade, that's when it really got shut down by a teacher of mine who handed my pictures back and chuckled. So before I even looked, I folded them up and stuck them in my backpack. And now that I'm in this space, I remember doing a TEDx talk in 2019 titled, I took 40,000 pictures, 30,000 are selfies. So in my on my phone, I have so many selfies. Every year I give myself a birthday photo shoot. It's my favorite time of year. So even now, I was talking to my nail tech earlier. I'm like, okay, what color nails I'm doing this year? Because every year for the last 4 years, like I'll tell her my nails early in the year so I don't switch my mind. So like going all out for those moments where, you know, it becomes difficult when you can only post a picture a couple times before people are like, okay, we've seen this already. It's like, but you didn't see this picture. So that is the goal for me. That is always the intentionality behind my work. Doing work with on campus, hosting the inaugural Body Diversity Conference for IUPUI, and working to bring that back for this year. Just looking at my dissertation, I actually just had a conversation moments after I had got off the phone with you all about creating a body diversity course for IUPUI. So my professor, when I showed him my syllabus and talked about it, he said, oh, you should have been did this. He's like, why didn't I think to tell you to do this? I'm like, because I don't think I was ready at that point. I had too much going on. So to actually be able to continue to do this work, like I said, for me and my work, I center fat body experiences, but I talk about the spectrum of different body diversity because I think it's critical, right? Unfortunately, we live in a world where if I can't make you feel like you're a part of the narrative, then you feel like you don't want to be a part of it. But also it helps me as someone who is advocating for other people to broaden that spectrum so we can have more conversations around it, right? Also writing photography, one of my first poetry, not photography, poetry. I have a chapbook coming out, hopefully by the end of this year, is Do Fat Girls Run? And it's so a lot of people ask the question, but when you look at running, to run, you have to have 1 foot off the ground at a time. And it's almost like escaping that reality. What does that look like? And then one of the last things that I am definitely working on this summer is for individuals 50 and plus, we never put them in a conversation. So this is an opportunity for bigger bodies in that capacity. One, they'll be able able to engage in a photo shoot that is centered around fine art. But then 2, they'll be able to tell their story. What would you say to your younger body at this point? What's that conversation look like? And then the last thing is, for each participant that involves themselves, I will do a spoken word piece related to that conversation we've had. And then I want to put in almost like a coffee style book. So those individuals will forever have that. And also that gives those who are identified as seniors, but I like to call them seasoned saints. They have this conversation, you know what I'm saying, to have that conversation. So how can I incorporate those voices as well? So I'll stop there because I will continue to go on. Y'all know I got tangents in me. I try not to be a tangent.
I was so excited the day I could order off the senior menu. It was like, yes, I worked hard for this.
Waiting for my turn. I got some time, but I'm waiting for my
My husband was not excited about that.
He wasn't. Oh my
No.
gosh. I was actually on a road trip and I like sat down in a restaurant and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can order off this menu. Yes.
Oh, Elise, this has been wonderful. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank
for
you
taking
so
the time out.
much. Yeah.
I appreciate
Always a treat.
Have fun, and hopefully we will get together again and collaborate a little and stay in each other's spheres or circles of knowledge.
Exactly. If I could leave anybody listening with the last little bit of information, if you want to connect with me, it's info@fatnessfiction.com. That's FATNESSFICTION. I am on Facebook and Instagram. A lot of things will be relaunching if you heard something that you're interested in. But the biggest thing I want to leave you all with is mind the body that you occupy. Literally, because at the end of the day, you only get one body. And if you are okay with making everybody else feel uncomfortable, trust and believe, although you may feel like you're in a certain spot in your life, that too will show up, because everybody changes. You are not the same body you were when you were born, and you will not be the same body when you pass. Take care of the health that makes you have a good quality of life, and do not worry about others. If people seek that advice and seek that help, then that's when you show up. But for you to automatically pass judgment, that is something I would highly suggest that you change your mindset on that. Because again, one comment for you could be a detrimental, traumatic thing that sticks with somebody the rest of their lives. People sometimes will not remember what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. So again, we just all out here trying to get crunk, live life, get some little money, and just live this best life. So again, before you create harm for people, recognize what they may have already went through. And if you don't have to think about that, live your little privileged life and stop creating harm. Just go ahead. You'll be fine. Okay. Everybody out here. One thing about it is nobody gonna make it out of here alive.
No one's making out of here alive. No.
Nobody. You might
Yeah.
live a little longer. You might even get to the ends of the earth, but you will not make it out of here alive. Whatever happens after life, what you believe in, believe on. I'm not here to question that. But on this here earth, everybody gonna taste a little bit of dirt, or, you know, depending on how you get rid of the remains, you're gonna get up out of here. So let's make it a good time, people. That's all I'm saying. Pick up a margarita or glass of water, tea, coffee. Cheers to your people and keep moving. So those are my last thoughts, ladies. And I thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, we're going to link all your information to this post, so people can definitely reach out if they want to connect with you. And we encourage people to do that. So thank you so much. Shannon, it was lovely to see you again.
You too. Thank you so much, ladies. I'm filled with so much energy and happiness right now. Thank you.
I know. I'm pumped. I want to go to Paris. I want to spend the week with
Amazing.
Elise.
I know, right? Oh my gosh.
I'm a good time. We will have fun. We got to figure this out. Let's get our money together and we can do this.
Okay, let's do it.
Future goals. I like this. Even I, who does not like to travel, will go.
Okay.
Listen, I never liked the airplane until I got on one and I recognized where to get you. I'm like, okay, as long as I can get off the plane. Okay. I still don't like airplanes. I really don't.
My
All
favorite
right.
show is Mayday Air Disaster. So
Oh no, I can't watch that. I'll never travel again.
okay.
No.
We
All
won't do
right.
that.
Don't watch that tonight. All will be wonderful. Have a wonderful time and thank you so much.
have a
Thank you.
good time. Bye.